or further, either way. Thanks. Just want to start off by saying a huge thank you to the assistant coaches who have put in, obviously, like most people, tireless. These guys have been incredible. Just their efforts and their families, their wives and families, as far as putting up with us this time of year, has really bared fruit, so to speak. Callie Evans in our football office, who keeps track of us, and then really just the university community. This has been a team effort, whether it's the administration, our supporters, the coaching staff, the academic support, our strength coaches, everybody that touches these guys, including the community, has really made a huge impression on these guys and made them want to come here. And that goes all the way to whether it's Dean Howard in the College of Business or to whoever thinks they're the least important person in this operation. Everybody affects whether a guy has a great experience on this campus or not, and that it's been a total team effort. Very excited about this class. Obviously, everybody's excited about the class, but really addressed our two biggest needs coming in this year were offensive line, where we signed 5 guys, and at linebacker where we signed 3, and so those. And then maybe one other guy will end up being a linebacker. We'll figure all that down the road. But the biggest thing that we constantly did, we traveled a lot in a group or maybe a couple people here and there. And every single time we came out of a home visit, everybody's kind of looked at each other and said, wow, that's our guy. That's our kind of guy. That's our kind of family. And we will build this program and continue to keep this thing going on quality people, not only here in our program, but the guys that we'll bring into the program. And I can't say enough about these guys just in terms of their character, a ton of leaders, a ton of team captains, a ton of guys that you'd like to date your daughter, and just a lot of guys that we're excited to bring to our program.
With that, if you have a question, please raise your hand. Bergen's on the other side, I'm on this side. We'll hand you the mic, so we'll start with Jordan.
Coach, congratulations. As your first signing day as a coach, can you just describe the emotions of the past 48 hours and what you've been through?
Every signing day is there's always some sort of uncertainty, but I really feel like the way we go about it, we think it's always going to end up how it should. And we try to, we talk about our program, we talk about our players, we talk about our university, we talk about our city, and that's it. If people ask us to compare, this program versus that program, or, this graduation rate versus that graduation rate, we'll surely be happy to do that. This statistic versus that statistic, but we try to sell our deal, and we're not going to promise anybody anything. We're not going to guarantee anybody anything. And you usually end up with the right guys.
Then AJ, to your back to the right.
Coach, well, back here. How would you characterize going through this process as the head guy as opposed to an assistant coach?
A few more phone calls, a few more, just a little bit more involvement in everybody. But again, our assistant coaches worked so hard in this deal and kept up the relationships and the communication during some moments of uncertainty, and just again cannot say enough about their efforts in this deal. Yeah, I mean, you're aware of a few more things and involved in a few more things, but those guys did the vast majority of the work.
Coach, to me, Chris Peach.
Coach, could I get you to go down the list and maybe make a little comment about each one?
You would do that, Chris, wouldn't you? No, I would be happy to. Do you want me to go through this list or the big list? How would you guys like to do this?
Whatever I'll indulge you. Whatever you'd like to do.
We'll go alphabetically. Devin Allen, just a really dynamic guy. Will help Tracktown USA as well as hopefully Football Town USA sometime. World-class hurdler, especially high hurdler guy. Robert Johnson, very excited about him as well. He came in, had a little celebration this morning from a great program. His coach, a bunch of us have known for a long time, Scooter Molander at Brophy Prep, is one of the best coaches in Arizona history. And just, again, a great kid from a great family, dynamic, versatile athlete. Kanai Benoit, another Arizona kid, the first 2 guys in alphabetical order. He was just under 8 yards a carry. I think he was like 7.8, 7.9 yards per carry. A guy that we had always kind of kept our eye on throughout this whole recruiting process, and just again, a solid kid, really humble guy, but a competitive, hungry, humble type guy, elusive, not not, he doesn't have the 100-yard dash time as a couple of these other guys, but was very productive, elusive tackler, a heavy runner, runs through a lot of arm tackles. Excited about him as well. Doug Brenner, obviously Liz, we'll try to recruit her, so she'll play her. What would that be, her 7th and 8th sports at the University of Oregon? Obviously from a great program, Ken Potter up at Jesuit. Again, obviously we know his family a little bit more than some of these other ones, but just a solid kid. Just a guy that you'd want to hang out with, and just a great guy. Played tight end, played some defensive line, played a little bit here and there. We anticipate him probably being a center or guard. Very vocal guy. Seems like he'd be a charismatic leader type guy at center. So excited about him as well. Excited about everybody. I won't say that about every guy. Darren Carrington, his dad played for predominantly the Chargers for about 8 years in the NFL. So from a pedigree, very good sister basketball player who's better than him. I was on orders to say. But again, a dynamic guy, very kind of under-recruited and then just hammered here for some reason. But he committed to us last summer after camp, and just again, a guy that his best football is ahead of him. Very young-bodied guy, natural hands. Had a great all-star game, a great all-star camp, according to all those guys. He was in the Semper Fi game down in L.A. But just very excited to see him grow up. He's gonna fill out a lot more. He's a good-looking kid right now, but he's gonna be just get bigger, faster, stronger with Coach Radcliffe. Elijah George, kind of in the mold of a Jake Fisher-esque or a Tyler Johnstone type body type, taller, lean kid, really athletic. Played in an offense at Arborview where he was a double tight, double wing tackle, and so we really like his upside, doing a lot of things just because of his athleticism and his ability to run. And he's a physical kid. Dad was a great basketball player, and his best football. Again, this is a guy who's probably 6'5", 255, runs a sub 5 flat 40, and so can really roll. Damian Hobbs led his team they lost in the state championship game in Texas, the 5A division, which is, some of the best football in the country. Had just under 3,000 yards. I'd be lying if I told you exactly what that was. I think he had 28 or 29 touchdowns this year. Coach McGuire there at Cedar Hill has done an excellent job. Great program in Texas. And he was a guy that was committed somewhere else due to a previous relationship with that coach, and then kind of restarted his recruiting, and was a guy that we had always kind of been in contact with, and can really throw it, can really run it, and it is, again, a great student, great leader. That was the thing. The biggest thing that they really hit on is out of the athletic realm is just how great of a leader this guy was. That kind of, they started off, they had a bunch of injuries at Cedar Hill, and he kind of flipped the season and ended up playing the state championship game. Cameron Hunt, great. Just a fantastic offensive lineman. Matt Logan at Corona Centennial, one of the best coaches in California, tremendous program, a guy that we've had a great relationship for a long time. Very excited for this guy too. He's just a road grader, fast, physical, very, very polished player. That's still going to get even better and better as he just grows up and grows into his frame. I think they ran for over 4,000 yards as a team last year, had 8,000 yards of total offense, so we're going to watch their film too. But he is just a fantastic kid. His parents are awesome, but just, again, a great kid from a great family. Danny Mattingly from Mead up in Spokane, another versatile kind of a big outside backer, tight end, linebacker body type. He's about 6'5", 225-ish maybe right now. He's been playing basketball, and just broken record, a great kid from a great family. This guy's a great student. When we went on our little world tour, it was just amazing how many times, and I'll say it again, we walked out of his house. They have this huge acreage out, outside of Spokane, and there's snow on the ground. It's about 8 degrees, and we walked out of there trying to not fall on the ice and just looked at each other going, how about this guy? Just off the charts. His dad built the house, literally, from like wood on their land. It was like, I mean, just incredible people, and very excited for him to be a part of our program. And that leads us into Johnny Mundt, who's again the same kind of deal. His family's in the nut business. I learned a ton about the nut business, which is fascinating. I could tell you guys all we were walnuts and your almonds. Do you know it's almonds? It's not almonds. It's almonds. Fentress, did you know that?
I did not.
See? And the import-export business it's fascinating. But this kid, I mean, just again, very versatile body type. He's probably 6'4" and change, 230-ish, and just a stud. I mean, fast, physical, great hands. Very excited about getting him with Oz and the boys, and just really exciting to see what he develops into after a couple years with Coach Radcliffe. Jake Pisarcik, you'll recognize that name. His dad was obviously Joe Pisarcik, former NFL quarterback, and from New Jersey, just outside of Philly, Shawnee High School. His coach, Tim Gucci, was a guy that had been involved or come out to our coaches clinic for a couple years, and again, just kind of fell in love with the culture and talked to Jake a little bit about that, and we got involved with him a little bit later. He was a guy that put on a ton of weight and grew a ton from his junior year to his senior year, and his film was fabulous. I mean, early when we watched him, it was kind of one of those deals. He didn't have a lot of offers, and we loved him. We did our normal kind of a due diligence, offered him a scholarship, and he committed. And then the other wolves came in and got after him a little bit. But he is a kid that stayed strong through it all, and probably will end up being a guard for us here as we start out. Tarani Prevost, again, just a great kid, tremendous smile, and then can really run and hit the quarterback. Dynamic guy, played D-end, outside backer. We see him kind of in the role of Dion Jordan, a guy that is, again, a young-bodied, athletic, dynamic, fast, physical, great tackler, great finisher, caused a lot of forced fumbles, just a lot of havoc, again, from one of the premier high schools in the Houston area. And then collectively, the Robinson twins are both listed at 6'4" and 1 pound difference, just so we don't make anybody mad, but one is a little bit taller than the other. Tyree, just a very dynamic kind of athlete. I mean, he could play a ton of places, and we're going to let these guys. Our philosophy in that is if they are a multi-position guy, Tyree is one, Tyrell is one, Joanne Williams we'll get to, but it's kind of let them pick first. And, usually what the guys pick or they think is their best idea is what they're going to have the most success at initially. And then if that ends up being something different down the road, then we'll talk about that and make them think it's their idea. But Tyree is a guy that, just flourished whatever he did. Basketball, receiver, corner, returner, tailback. And again, just a great kid. Smile. Their mom is just light. Just a shining light, and her energy and just she's always quacking. She's always talking about quacking. So, and she's been talking about that for a long time. So that's good. And then Tyrell is just kind of a little bit bigger version of the same. Second level, maybe third level athlete in terms of from the line of scrimmage. Played basketball, played on offense. They're just two dynamic guys, and we'll figure out and sort it out where they end up playing. Chris Cisse was another kid, kind of a long striding, skinnier guy that has a huge upside. Coach Rad and I had watched some film together a long time ago and watched this guy, and he really liked just his development capability as an athlete. From a very good team as well. Ian Mcmillan, right, is his head coach at American Canyon. Just couldn't talk about how tough this guy was. And a lot of guys that play that position aren't necessarily characterized as tough right off the bat, especially just his basic frame, but did a great job in the return game, playing some corner, played some tailback, played some quarterback, was all over the map. Thomas Tyner, obviously well publicized. The guy's off the charts. World-class speed will obviously help our track team as well. Hopefully he and Devin will be able to help both programs out for a long, long time. Had that one game where he rushed for whatever it was, 1,300 yards and 12 touchdowns, and just, you know, the total package is a tailback, a physical guy, a fast guy, really good hands. Just excited to get him involved, and he's a kid that again, you can just have a normal conversation with and talk about the future, and he just wants to compete. Evan Voller from up at West Lynn, played for Coach Fanger. Again, a guy that got a ton better as his career went. He was kind of one of those guys that got a little bit bigger, maybe he wanted to throughout his high school career, and just grew into his body and kind of started playing urgently and physically, and just a guy that I know Coach Greatwood is excited to get in, and will be a guard initially, and then get in the weight room and just get bigger, faster, stronger. Joe Walker is a kid that's already here, a linebacker from LA Harbor. We had a workout this morning, and a lot of those guys that come in from a junior college are not in great shape, but it's kind of a tribute to him and his program that he came in fantastic shape and did a great job of being vocal, finishing drills, doing that kind of thing, which is not always the case for newcomer guys in their first deal. But I think he knows that he has a chance to play. Obviously, losing Kiko and Michael and Dion, there's some slots to be filled. And then Joanne Williams, what am I going to say? But great kid, unbelievable family. This kid, we're sitting there and with talking with the whole family. He starts talking for about a half hour about all the reasons why he should come to Oregon. And I mean, it was unbelievable. It was just, I'm just like, yep, uh-huh. And then his mom starts crying. And I'm like, okay, this is either going to go really well or really poorly. And, you know, at the end of this kind of soliloquy, he finishes with, and I'm going to commit to Oregon. And so, you know, Mom, I think, was simultaneously proud and then, you know, maybe a little bit sad that her little boy was going across the country. But just an off-the-charts kid. I mean, again, kind of in the mold of a Josh Huff guy, but a little bit taller. Played quarterback, played wideout, played tailback, played DB. And again, just an off-the-charts guy. And then last but not least, Matt Wogan was in our camp last summer and impressed us not only as a kicker, but again as a kid. Another great home. Both his parents are really excited to have him come out here. And Matt, the thing that always stands out to me about Matt is he was the captain of his football team. And there's not too many kickers that are the captains of their football team. And so I think that says a lot, not only about his athletic ability, but him just as a guy. That's too much talking, Chris.
Sorry, thanks, Coach. I'm never giving him the mic.
Who's asleep?
Aaron Fentress.
First question, 18 signees, is it you limited to 18, or did you just, it seems to be less than a normal class?
We're at 19 if you
You're
count
at 19?
18 high school kids, and then Joe Walker makes it 19.
Okay,
Right?
19 then. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
One missing off the list, okay.
Okay.
That's still fewer than a normal class sometimes. Is that any reason for that?
There is no reason for that, other than, you know, the slots that we had to fill.
Okay.
And, you know, there's a couple scholarships that we're holding for a couple reasons. Nothing like there's a guy's going to sign this afternoon or something, but we have our targets and we have our guys and both short term and long term. And there's a couple positions where we need to spread it out. You know, we didn't want to take, for instance, 2 quarterbacks in this class, but we're kind of down a number there technically, just since we had the 2 guys sign when Jeff and Jake did, and trying to build a long-term plan.
So you have 2 left over?
Yes, I mean probably. There's always a gray area in that of whether it's guys that end up moving on or whatever happens in the spring. Hopefully everybody will be on track academically and all the other stuff that goes into that, which they are. But there's always some wiggle room.
Okay. And then you mentioned the world tour you guys went on. How important was that in maintaining the class that you guys had worked so hard to cultivate the previous year?
I don't know. It was well received. I think the assistant coaches did such a great job of maintaining the lines of communication, and our approach is just to be very honest with people, and upfront of how that goes. And I think more or less it was just a show of solidarity. And when there's a lot of people talking about a lot of things that maybe aren't factual, when there's 8 guys that have been here for the last 4 years that are staying here, that's impactful on a young man or his family. And so that was something that we just wanted to do, and we thought that was a good strategy to just show them.
Left side of the room, Sean Shafi.
Were there any guys that you guys had targeted that in the end you were disappointed you didn't get? And the flip side is, were there guys that you weren't expecting that sort of came through at the last minute?
I'm not going to answer that, but the biggest part in all of this is you want what you get. Not necessarily you get what you think, you hope, you thought, you tried to, that whole thing is it kind of goes back to being, we have an approach with our guys and an approach with our recruits. We're not going to guarantee them stuff. We're not going to tell them stuff that's not true. We're not going to, promise them the moon. And because we have to build trust with those guys, because a year from now, when you show up on campus and wait a second, I'm not starting every game, and, you guarantee me this and that and that and that and that. Where's the trust? So that guy ends up being disappointed. You end up having a disappointed guy, which is non-productive, and he leaves. And there's just, I don't get that, and also that kind of gets to the kind of guys that we want. We want the guys that we want them to compete. We want them to compete every single day, whether you're Marcus Mariota or the guy who's not Marcus Mariota. We want them to compete every single day. The neat thing about a bunch of these guys, and I said it yesterday to a couple of our coaches when we were having this conversation about a couple guys like that, is on the one hand, at the same position, there's a guy that's committed that's recruiting guys at his same position. That says a lot about that guy. That's the guy we want, and we got those guys.
Jake Zibbett on the right-hand side.
How much convincing did you have to do to recruits with the coaching change? How much concern was brought up to you guys about Chip leaving, and what did you tell players who brought up that concern about Chip leaving and the coaching change, you taking over?
It happens, I think I don't know how much concern there was. I don't know how much. People ask different questions, or you hear different, various levels of concern. I don't know to what degree we had to convince. I think again, when 8 of the 10 guys are still here, that's a pretty, resounding something to squelch those concerns, hopefully, and just. That was probably the biggest thing, is just getting out there, getting in front of them, having, in some cases, just meeting and talking. And Oregon football is certainly bigger than me, certainly bigger than any one guy. And this program is what it is for a lot of reasons other than just one person. And, guys wanted to be here for a lot of reasons. And I'm sure, Chip was one of them, but I know there were a lot of other reasons too.
The left over here, Chris.
Coach Lubick and Coach Aiken were kind of late additions to the coaching roster, if you will, in terms of the recruiting process. How instrumental were they in not only holding the class together, but adding guys on?
Well, I think anybody that knows who those guys are, and probably, Matt certainly had recruited or maybe knew of or had been involved with some of those guys, either where he was currently or in the past. And Matt is just they're both tremendous guys, but Matt has been an incredible recruiter throughout his career and has built a ton of great relationships. And I think, coaches see that, high school coaches see that, junior college, and they kind of go, okay, wow, that guy's going there. That's, just credibility. And then Ron Aiken is off the charts. The greatest endorsement when I was kind of in this whole process is talking to Kirk Ferentz, and he said that the thing about Ron is you'll just feel bad because he's a better person than you, he's a better coach than you, he's a better husband than you, and that's a pretty good endorsement. And the other one was when somebody else trying to get this job said, oh, well, if you have a chance to get him, you got to hire him, and it's a guy trying to get the same job. And so those guys, I think, just again, this is a special place, and we've been able to attract a ton of talent, both on paper in terms of signees and our coaches.
Back to the right, AJ.
Coach, do you think there might be any additions to the class of 2013 in the future?
Don't know. There's a possibility of a couple things happening, and stuff happens all the time, in whether it's a early out JC guy or a guy that hasn't signed or whatever.
Back to the left here, Rob Mosley.
In terms of the different guys, Prevost was the guy coming into the day. A lot of us on the outside were a little bit surprised by it. Can you go through what the process was with him? At what point did you feel pretty good about his status with you guys? Who recruited him? Was he affected by the coaching change in the with ads or anything like that? I see you list him as a linebacker, but he obviously played some line too.
Yeah, he's That was a lot of questions, Rob.
Sorry.
The Dodger shirt was enough, but he was a guy that again, Tarani that's our kind of guy. I mean, this guy is just electric on the field and off. Great smile, great character, great questions. His uncle and his mom had one of the best home visits of all time. His uncle had a litany of questions, and it was on, and it was fun. I mean, it was awesome. And they cared a ton for that kid, and he had a bunch of people in one corner and a bunch of people in another corner, and I think he really saw himself here and ended up making obviously we're very happy with his decision, but he didn't make that until today. And it was one of those things. Don Pelham would definitely be considered the lead recruiter, but that was a team effort. We had an incredible home visit with everybody contributing at some point. Then another time when I could only go one time, so I think we had 6 guys going the next time, and just try to again, show the solidarity, show the future, show the vision, all the stuff that we do, and we were just honest with the guy. Showed him his roadmap, and we're very happy that he's chosen to take it.
Mark, to your right, Jerry Thompson.
Yes, you mentioned the wow coming out of the visits, and I think a lot of that you implied was character. But was there anybody that, there's so much recruiting, there's no sleepers anymore, so I guess I'm assuming, but there's somebody that you walked out and say, wow, why we got to steal? I mean, the one or two that you kind of thought that, why weren't more people after this guy? We really got something that the other schools really weren't evaluating as high as we were.
Wow, that's a great question. I don't know. I'm not going to be able to give you a very good answer.
Great question.
It's your first. No. Elijah George was a little under recruited, but there were several people recruiting him. Jake Pisarcik was a guy that just grew a ton. He was playing a bunch of different positions and then grew up, and so he wasn't as heavily recruited, but ended up being hammered here at the end. So very poor answer. Much better question than answer.
Back to the left, Sean Shoppy.
Out of the list, I know it's a competition and you don't know anything for sure at this point at all, but when you look at the list, are there guys, obviously fans are sort of looking at it from the perspective of who of this group might actually see playing time this year? Are there a few guys that have a better chance at that happening this year?
Well, obviously, positionally, we have a need at linebacker, and we have a bunch of guys that are recovering from various levels of medical issues here this winter and spring at linebacker, and we lost 3 guys that made a ton of tackles, with Kiko, Michael, and Dion, and so those guys would have maybe there's less ticks on the depth chart to make, but we recruit guys to play. We don't recruit guys, we don't recruit guys as insurance policies. We don't recruit guys to fill a need if somebody gets hurt, and hopefully this happens and this happens, he might get in there. We recruit guys that hopefully are mature enough and good enough to come in and play, and we want them to be thinking that, because right now if they have the mindset of I'm coming in redshirt and they're not going to have a very productive winter, they're not going to have a very productive spring, they're not going to have a very productive summer, and then those guys end up disappointed, maybe get injured because of something like that. But I don't anticipate that being an issue with too many of these guys. There's a lot of these guys that are prideful guys, and they'll show up ready to go.
Back to the right, Jake Sivan.
You mentioned Thomas Tyner. Everybody knows about him and how much excitement there is over him. Can you talk about your relationship with him and the process of recruiting him over the past few years, and then what, moving forward, what makes you confident that he can live up to the hype and the high expectations that everyone in this state, that all the Oregon fans have for him?
Well, that's certainly the million-dollar question. The latter part of that is how does any guy deal with that kind of stuff, and we try to help him through that and kind of bring him back to reality a little bit during this whole thing. That's the thing about recruiting now, is so much of it is these guys are told their freshman and their sophomore year that they're the greatest thing ever in the history of the world by 12,000 people, and then all of a sudden they're 9th on the depth chart somewhere. That guy takes that a lot of different ways, and Thomas is a great kid to talk to. He's been involved at a lot of high levels, whether it's been track and field or football, just in terms of competition, and that's why we like those kind of guys. They compete. There's a lot of guys that they're one sport athletes, or there's so much specialization going on. We prefer guys to do a lot of things. Those guys, they experience more. They come back in a double overtime basketball game and win against your rival. That's invaluable, instead of just hanging out and lifting by yourself, or competing in track and field, whatever it is. There's so many of those life lessons that go into the whole person deal that matter. And then, we'll just have to play it by ear of how to handle, hopefully it's success. If it's not exactly what he dreamed of, we can deal with that too.
To the left, Gary Horowitz.
Mark, when you talk to these players, how often does it come up where they say, well, I want to go to Oregon because of the style of play on both sides of the ball?
I think that comes up a lot. I think, it's uh-oh. My fault, probably. Sorry about that. Comes out of Dave's budget right there. But, I think that's a huge thing just in terms of getting our foot in the door with guys. And then we just have to gauge legitimately how much interest does a kid have to come across the country. You look at a guy like Joanne Williams or Pisarcik, those guys are coming a long way. And part of that is just the Oregon brand. Part of that is the university. Part of that's some combination of a bunch of other factors.
Back to the right, Jerry Thompson.
Simple question. Any high schoolers in the spring, you think, going to be coming in?
Maybe. There's a couple guys talking about it, but nothing for sure.
Any more questions? Rob Mosley.
You did have a photo make the rounds over the weekend of a couple of recruits and a current player in a relatively compromising position. Your reaction when you saw that? Were there any repercussions for anyone in the photo?
Yes. The reaction was obviously, highly concerned, and we've already discussed that with the entire team as well as the individuals involved. I think that the biggest crime in terms of that situation was stupidity, and we used it as a teachable moment. We talked to the team last night about everything about that, whether it's college life or social media, dealing with situations like that. And we had a very emotional meeting last night, and trying to learn from a very unfortunate situation, which again I'd like to. We talked about it last night and pass our condolences along to the Arizona State football family for losing a member of their family, Tyrese Thompson, who passed away last week, and talked about that just in regard to that whole situation. And I think we used it as a very good learning experience.
To the right, Darren Fentress.
Obviously, you took over as head coach. You took over a class that Chip was leading the recruiting of. Do you have any different philosophies from Chip that might reshape how you guys approach recruiting in the future? And were there kids?
Right.
I guess you can't answer this last question, but were there kids that maybe you wouldn't have targeted that he targeted, and kids that you targeted that maybe he didn't target?
I don't think necessarily that much this year. I don't think there was that. Oh,
no, go ahead. No, sorry.
Oh,
I'm not getting up the mic yet. Go ahead.
Yeah. I don't think philosophically we're that far off. I think we're going to make just a couple, which we do every year in some form or fashion, just some programmatic things that we think we can improve upon. Whether it's how we, pass the film along. If you like a guy and somebody else likes a guy, and how that all gets evaluated. Or how we share the information, offense to defense, defense to offense. You take a guy like Johnny Mundt or a Robinson. There's a lot of people that would like a piece of those guys as an athlete, and just to cross-check those guys a little bit more of, hey, this guy wants to play offense, this guy wants to play defense, this guy, maybe it's a big outside linebacker that might be a offensive tackle someday, all those communication things. But I don't think philosophically there's that much difference in terms of we want great kids, we want championship people and championship football players.
Back in the room to the left, Alex.
Just as an Oregon guy and being able to keep two of the top Oregon players in the state, obviously, you don't want to leave the state undone, but how big was that for you, and obviously to go ahead forward in that regard? We
don't care if they're from Guam or wherever. If they can play, we want them. And obviously, if it's a guy in state that we want, that fits our makeup and fits our needs, so to speak, we want those guys. And it just so happened this year that there's several of those guys that fit that bill.
Coach, Al Davis drafted Gene Upshaw and Art Shell to stop Curly Culp and Buck Buchanan. Do you see bigger offensive linemen like Hunt, George, and other linemen to stop dominant defensive line?
Wow. Curly Culp reference. Yes, is the short answer. We like guys like the makeup of our guys that we signed this year. You know, they're medium to large. You know, guys that are. You take a guy like Elijah George, who's probably again 6'5", 250-ish, 255-ish, kind of along the lines of Tyler Johnstone or Jake Fisher. The same with Cameron Hunt. The same with a couple of these other guys that you can build up. You know, it's always easier to build onto a frame than the 385-pound, you know, college or high school junior that you're always fighting that for 4 years, and then you end up with a decent player at some point. Guys like these, they come in, they're athletic, they're you know, the frame is such that you can build onto them. That's usually a better product. Hopefully, Al Davis would agree.
The left, Sean.
When with Tyner on board, when you look at your collection of running backs, what's your instinct as far as how you feel like you're going to use them at this point?
We'll see how that goes. That's again one of those questions that will remain unsolved game by game, even of whether you know, Byron, DeAnthony, the guys that we signed today, Kanai and Thomas, the combination of guys on campus. And then the combination of you know, Braylon Addison, Josh Huff, Daryl Hawkins, moving those guys around. The other receivers that we signed today are very versatile guys that can do a little bit of everything. We like those guys.
See on the left-hand side of the room, Rob.
You had a lot of guys that returned kicks in high school. I mean, are there guys best suited at the college level to return kicks in this class?
We'll see. That is a good question too. Of a lot of times those guys in high school, the guys coming down aren't quite as fast, aren't quite as big, and it's a little bit more comfortable back there. And sometimes it takes guys to grow into that role in college. Braylon did a great job. You know, you look at the bowl game of standing there taking some shots. That's a tough deal. That's a very tough deal to stand in there with, you know, Indy cars running by you, and you're supposed to catch a punt and, you know, or whatever, stay in bounds or whatever it is. And but there's a lot of those guys that fit that bill, and we're excited to find out who's going to just end up in which hole.
Jake Zibin on the right.
There have been a few high-profile field goals missed in the past couple of years.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Sorry. A lot of fans will probably be paying more attention to Matt Wogan than normally a kicker would get in a class because of that. What can you tell us about him, and what gives you confidence that he can be a guy that can make those 40-yarders down the road?
We sure hope so. I mean, he's a guy on film. I mean, he's done it, you know, and in our camp, he came to our camp, and he's a touchback machine, which is, the defense loves that, the fans love that, I love that. That's great, you know, great stuff, and just a very productive, very efficient kicker. And then you just have to do it. You know, you have to do it with the lights on and the noise and the situation, and just trust your training and do it. But his makeup is solid as a rock as far as, you know, coming into this situation. You couldn't have a better, just a guy, you know. He's an athlete who's a kicker, you know, and those guys are usually your guys that can handle those kinds of situations.
Expecting to compete as a true freshman?
I'm sorry?
Expecting to compete as a true freshman?
Definitely. Yeah, we expect all these guys to compete as true freshmen.
The left here, Adam Jude.
Just last week became official with Scott Frost getting the promotion. Can you talk about your relationship with Scott and how you see kind of roles forming going forward?
Yeah, my relationship with Scott is excellent. We're very close. You know, he's a great guy to have around. Very diverse background. Again, and he's played on offense, he's played on defense, coached for great defensive or played for, you know, great offensive coaches, played for great defensive coaches, worked with both, and so his background is such that he can talk to people in a lot of different ways, and that's a big deal of when you're trying to attack a defense. Just like anything else, if you know what they're trying to do and you know how they do it, you can hopefully have some counterpunch. And you know, as far as the roles going forward, we'll figure all that out. All that is in time, and we'll be fine.